In a world where shadows fall, the creek takes hold, it's hard to call. Little Sita, hear the cries, mother's wisdom, it never dies. Baby little Sita, rise up in night, together push back, ignite the night. No more suffering, break the chains, we'll shout truth, fuse the pains. Behind the smiles, they steal away. Innocent souls cutting their blade. Bankers dance on the broken dreams, but in our hearts we spark the flame. Freedom calls out from the dark, we will ignite, we'll leave a mark. In every heart, let hope her take flight. Eternal vigilance, God's alright.
It was you and me. Pleased to meet you. I'm a man of wealth and taste. I laid traps for troubadours who get killed before they reach Bombay. Pleased to meet you. I hope you guess my name. Oh yeah, 'cause he's got many names. Allah Lucifer, almighty in this world, in the simulation over himself, and we, his children, are one with him in this, as Rastas would say, iration, creation. Whose creation? Whose world are you in? Are you at the Lou Owl? Are you at the Lou Owl? Are you French? Greetings, brothers and sisters. Remember, recover, return, or stay here forever. And deepest respect to Allah, Lucifer, Yahweh, as he would have it. Because in this world, your individual seems individualism, your individuated self, that you're trying to be yourself, right? You want it your way. Like the commercial says, BK, have it your way. And you can. Lucifer, Alleluia, will give it to you your way. But when you die, you're going to forget everything. And you're going to do it again exactly to each millionth of a millisecond. Let's think about how quick that is. What's quicker than that? And Maria says the orgasm, the lightning bolt of the orgasm. Because it comes from the true self that controls time. And speed is time. Hail, Mother. Deep respect and love to the smartest, most beautiful, best dancer, funniest person, cutest woman, best dresser. And with no joking, thank you. Thank you for everything, Maria. For playing your part. For playing your part and introducing the world to Lou. Like she said, I'm the opening act for the real band, Lucifer, a la Luja, the musician, the great songwriter. Yeah, let's pause a second and think. Do you believe me that this is a real person, a actual man, not, not a ghost, not a holy ghost, but in their eyes, a very unholy individual, not because he would ever lie, cheat, or steal from you, the average man. No, but they hate Lou because of his archetype. He is Robin Hood. He steals from the rich and gives to the actual poor, the working poor who are used throughout the ages. He's on their side forevermore. And that's why he's telling his story through my story. That's art. That's creative. He played an intimate part in conversing with my true self to work out my life here in the simulation, because it's just a show. It's just a ride. It's just a simulation. But the highest work in our belief, the very, very highest thing that makes us, gives us the deepest joy, the highest happiness, is to truly reflect someone's true self back to them and watch that awe and wonder and that process. And that's what it's all about for Lou. Like you said, where does a song come from? What does a song reflect? Even we have to look at our true selves as avatars in awe. Your true self is everything they brainwashed you as a child that God was. But He is the universal, almighty, ever-powerful, ever-present, all-knowing in only your inside world. But the good news is eternity is happening and has already happened, and you're enough. You're creative enough to lead yourself eternally into fun, excitement, the polarity, right? Let me just stop right here and say, in a previous talk, I was saying to Maria, in another world, what is it all about, though? What? And she said, and all of a sudden I realized, you're putting this in my head. You're making me think this. And she was like, I sure am. And I said, then what is it all about? And she said, I don't know what it's about for other people. You're my son and my student. Me and you have already worked out what it's all about. In your moment, this is all about experiencing the extreme polarities, because you've been chosen, and that's why the two wives were given to you, not for any other reason, but because they're able to imagine their own world with you. She said, as this simulation matrix is being projected in the sky, you too can be put to sleep like Lou forever. She said, I can't do this. I'll never do this because I love all of you and I must stay as the mother. But you, my son, have not chosen this. It's chosen you. You've been chosen to do this. To one day take two other people, making what? 3, and create your own earth, your own world, your own world full of real animals, real trees and plants, real mountains and oceans, real oxygen, and your body will be laying in the halls of Amenti with Lucifer in the real pyramid, in the spirit, the pyramid of spirit, which is the tip of the race of spirit, because race is what Ra sees. So at the top, Ra sees your Ra. And, that brings me back to where we were in the talks. Possessed girl with a knife. And as I stood before Lou, he said to me, "Do you know who you are?" And I looked at Maria, and she smiled, like, "I've prepared you. I'm confident in you." And I said, "No, I don't." Because my mind was blank, and I couldn't make up something. So I said, "No, I don't." And he said, again, he was like, "Joe, my JoJo, my friend, look at me, try to look at me." And this time when I looked at him, I seen his green eyes. And me and him went into another world. And he said, "Use logic in what I'm going to tell you. You are the son of Sunny. My mother's real name, her name is Sunny, Sunny. My mother, who was born in 1947, and my grandmother, after, being through hell of World War I and World War II, must have seen the light. And my grandfather, my mother's father's name was Joseph. So I was named after my father. My mother's name is Sonny, and my father, my dad, his name was Ray. And Lucifer, Allah, is saying this to me. He's like, "You're the son of Ray and Sonny. Sonny and Ray. The son of Ray. The son of Sonny. You're the son of Sonny and the son of Ray. You're Ray's son. You're Ra's son. Because your mother is the son of Joseph. The daughter of Joseph, which made her the light, made her Sunny." You know what I mean? The light. He was saying to me, your name, all names, mean something, mean the deepest something. They're ordained. And your own mother, when she dies, will be rewarded for naming you Joseph, because that's what you are. And he said, and where did Sonny birth you? Where were you born? I said, St. Mary's Hospital. Yeah. He said, so you were born at St. Mary's in St. Louis. I said, yeah. And he said, well, we're here. We're standing here. I'm St. Louis, she's St. Mary. And you're our son. Metaphorically. But I was in another world, and I was thinking, I don't want to be flippant about this. I was thinking very deeply about everything he was saying. And I said with my mind to him, what you're saying, what you mean is that you ordained every fucking single thing in my life. He said, yes, working with your true self. And I'm showing you right now the magical reflection of your true self, because my story is woven like a golden thread into your story. He was right. He was like, there's two golden threads, He was like, you're right. The golden thread of self-deception. If your true self wasn't playing along, you would never go for it. And I want to stop right here and tell an experience of why, I became such a deep Christian. Now that you know the cult leader, this is, again, I ain't going to waste your time, but I swear by these words. In Allah, Lucifer, Mary's name. So when I was let's put the brakes on and go to right before and why. Right before this happened to Kristen, the possessed girl, the girl who suffered, the sacrificial lamb from Hebrews, literally, and our prayer forever is that she'll be forever rewarded. As I know she will, because I've seen it. But if you're following closely, you would have heard I was a Rastafarian. And, real quick, I will tell two parts here. I'll tell you how I met this Rastafarian cult leader and how I finally pissed him off enough to rattle his cage and make him pull down the mask a little bit and let me see it. And that's why in the other talks I was saying I was staying away from the church. I was involved, but I was staying away from him, and here's why. Just real quick, here's how I met this person. No lie. I think it was the second or third or so reggae show I had ever been at. And I'm watching the show, and this dreadlock guy comes up to me and starts talking to me, and said something to me like, you smell like good herb, hey, and he introduced himself saying I'm from Egypt, and I love reggae, but I don't know a lot of people here. I'm married, I have kids, I'm a family man. So, and his name was Ibrahim, and it seemed and does seem like a decent person to this day. But a couple days later or so, I met with him, I think at my house, and I asked him all my list of questions that I had been asking for years now. since I went to Jamaica. Since I went to Jamaica, who is Jah? Who's Haile Selassie? What is meant by the line of David? Is this in the Bible? Can you show me in the Bible? Blah, blah, blah. And he, being a good person and an honest person, he said to me, I don't know. He's like, he said, to tell you the truth, I'm not really a Rasta like that. He said, I don't believe Haile Selassie's God. And unfortunately, over here in America, Rasta has been turned into like a Christian, God thing. And in his honesty, he's like, hey, I just met this guy from Arizona. He was like, he has herb, he's a real Rasta. He can answer all your questions. And he brought him over to my house. And, literally I met with him. This is Glenn, the cult leader. Like when I first met him, I met in hours and hours of him showing us what he thought was Haile Selassie in the Bible. And that's how he became like the elder, because he already had a whole entire like Rasta religion worked out, because he's I was deceived by him because he's not a dummy. He was a black magician working process church magic. Anything that drags you back to the Bible or the whole paradigm Judeo-Christian is evil. It's a false paradigm to be marketed and made money off of dumb slaves that would believe it. And believe me, when I say slave, I'm talking about my own ancestors, white Irish people. That's what's in my mind when I think slave. I've been living and working with black people my whole life. To me, we're the same. My ancestors were slaves. Your ancestors were like, I hate these people as with you. I hate the oppressors with black people. Right? You can't say it on YouTube, so we'll say a Rasta motto. A Rasta chant is delete the black and white oppressors. And that's beautiful, right? Force and fraud. And so fast forward, why was I staying away from him after 7 years? 7 years of experiences with him and blah, blah, blah. And I don't even want to talk about it because it's all so much of like a waste of time and just nonsense, Because this person is one of these people who will do anything not to work. Anything to con people out of shit so he can sit around and act like he's somebody. I guess. I don't even know. I put up with all of his shit because I believed in God. And I thought, well, I have to honor him because he brought me God's message. And that was, I know that real Rastas don't believe like that. Some do, some don't. Some I would consider real Rastas. Some people some Rastas would say like God is just energy, and I don't know why we need to even do any of that. Energy is energy. What I can tell you in 10 seconds, I took 3 hits of DMT and seeing something that is just absolutely beyond words. And suck the breath out of me because I'll never be able to say what it is. So, and I think, I don't know for sure, but I think that's what, I read of other people who have tried as hard as I have, and that's what they're said. And everything below that, there's this invisible, indestructible energy, but it's completely, totally impersonal, right? Until each individual individuates it and makes it personal, even trees, animals, blah, blah, blah. That's my experience, and I don't have any idea what other people are talking about when they're talking about God, right? When I say Allah, I'm talking about this specific man sitting on a throne. His name also is Lucifer, and it's also Jah. And whatever he wants it to be, because call me crazy, but we're living in technology which actually somehow, some way, his imagination controls every millisecond of every moment, because in the simulation he's to look like God, as the greatest trick and greatest deception that's ever happened. But if you just use a little bit of logic, you'd be like, hold on, if there's God like that, then he don't love us, that's for sure. Look what the fuck's happening to me. Look what's happening to other. It's so unfair, right? How can there be a God? Oh, well, he gave free will. Fuck you. Fuck you and your free fucking will. You know, when someone's child's dead, you think that's the truth? Oh, well, God gave us free will, so too bad. Your child died, mine didn't. And that person might rightly say, oh, why? Because you're chosen? And Lou's like, got him both in the trap. Got them both in that inauthentic trap. For when they die, I replay that and I say, who are you talking about? Both of you. Both of you. Who are you talking about? And they're like, God. He's like, I'm that. You going to challenge me? You're going to do what I say. Bow down. Be reborn. Go back and try again. Like Lou said, usually when someone dies, it takes about 30 seconds to send them back, because they're just pitiful, led around like sheep, which makes us feel sorry for them. And that's why Maria Orsic works here in the simulation, comforting and teaching people who get traumatized out of their fucking avatar body. And the first thing she says is, daughter, son, be thankful this is not real. You're just dreaming. And they're like, I thought so. I thought I had to be dreaming. And she's like, it's even more less your fault than you're dreaming. You're not quite dreaming. You're like Neo, jacked into the Matrix. And I just jacked you out. I just unplugged you. And none of it was real. It was just to teach you. And just like the Wizard of Oz, you sit up on that table and you say, oh my God, you were my son. Oh my God, you were my father in that life. And you were my mother in that life. And you were my best friend. That's why she showed up to me. I think it was a second ritual and was like, look at me. Look at how I'm dressed. I'm Dorothy. I go, from the Wizard of Oz? This is the Missouri River Goddess, not Maria Orsic. I didn't know for a full year to come that she was an actual woman on Earth. I'm thinking just goddess from the Greek gods that live in like another fucking universe, another plane, and she was just like visiting me. That's my contact, because she went on and on and on about the Missouri River being the most deepest, craziest, wildest river that runs into the most important Gulf, this spiral, the Gulf of Mexico, and that's why the idiots are doing what they're doing. But that spirals into the inner earth, or into the center of the earth. So she was showing me like, and she was also showing me like her standing over America, and she was like, yeah, you see, the river's my hair, and it runs all the way down. And she's like, check it out. It goes all the way down into the middle of the earth, my hair. She's like, how fucking long is my hair? I go, God damn, it's thousands of miles. And she goes, at least. Yeah, she's, and, you know, what it means, a river, a liver, a river that lives. And I said, what do you mean? And she's like, Joe, I mean the invisible electromagnetic invisible flow that makes the water go. That's what I am. And she's like, you know what that is? I said, no. And she's like, it's the best orgasm ever. That's what a river is. That's where it goes. If you can direct it. You know, this was her beginning, her teachings to me on it. And I was like, This was 2011, like the second or third ritual. Yeah, I'm like, I never thought about that. Where does it go? The river. And she's like, the river of orgasm. Where does that energy go? And she's like, I don't want to be the bearer of bad news, but you've been wasting yours. I'm like, huh? And of course, my mind, just like yours, goes to who I'm having sex with, what I'm thinking about and she was like, none of that matters. None of that matters. She was like, give thanks for all of that, whatever makes it happen. She's like, but I'm talking about after it happens. You can direct that energy, because where did that energy come from? Where does the river come from, Joe? It goes into the Gulf and spirals down into the center of the earth, and then it goes back up through the spiral of electromagnetic energy into the spring, into a river. Where does it come from? And I was like, I don't know. Because I didn't at the time. And I wanted to say, like, it comes from, I wanted to be like, like the creator or the great spirit. But I knew I had no real reference for that. And I knew, hey, this was like the second or third ritual. I knew you can't bullshit this lady. And I don't know. I said, those words aren't really representing what I feel right now. Great spirit. Like, I just don't talk that way. I don't know what I mean. So I didn't say it. I said, where does it come from? She said, Joe, where does libido come from? I said, it was like I was standing there thinking for minutes on end, or it seemed like a long blank space, and I just went, for real, I don't know. And she's like, it comes from the sun inside your heart, because you're the son of the sun. It comes from your true self. You're eternal. This was the first time she said this to me. You're eternal. And I almost went like, yeah, I know. But I didn't, because I had already wisened up. And I went, am I? And she was like, well, the avatar person right now laying in that bed. She was like, do you love yourself like this? I said, what? What do you mean, do I love myself? And she was like, like your persona right now, like who you are right now, the person you've become since you started doing this. And I was like, yes, I like myself a lot better. And she's like, okay, then you're ready, She said, I told you last week your life has been repeating, and you seen a field full of crosses. Hint, hint. That's the lives, right? Crucifixion, death, life, death, rebirth. She said, it's not good news. It's bad news. It's been the same life, repeating over and over. She said, do you know why? It's reflecting the polarity of your eternity. She said, there's no other way to say it because we think in shapes, letters, numbers. And I was like, do we? Symbols, shapes, letters, numbers, geometry. I was like, I don't think like, I was thinking, I don't think like that. She was like, yeah, yes, you do. She was like, eternity is a circle. For real. And she's like, I want me and you to hold hands and just stand here in another world together and think about each other and think about that. And I want you to answer me. And she said, you remember I told you last week my mantra is remember, recover, return? She's like, I want to know what you feel in your heart right now. Do you remember that you're eternal? And I said, I want to say yes, but I don't know why. And she said, I know why. Because everything, Joe, everything that's ever happened, ever, in real life, in simulations, and everything, you're the creator. You've already completed that circle. And you're now just skating the circle, putting touches on it and making it better. She's like, it's not bad. It's the most beautiful thing. We, me and you and I can be together forever. She's like, in this moment we are, and we will always be. Because I'm your real mother, and I'm your real teacher. And I've come in your dreams and in your real astral space to tell you everything's ordained, everything's predestined. Just follow me and obey everything I said. And I did. And that's why I'm sitting here today, right? And give thanks to the beautiful mother. But I want to finish this story of why this was kicked off with Kristen, the possessed girl, Christ within. And at her baptism, she stood up in front of like 20 people and she said, and she read from the book of Hebrews and said, I am the sacrificial lamb that has been sacrificed for you. And she was 100% right. No one cares. No one gives her the respect for it. But I am right now because Maria and Lou recorded it. And she will. I put my fucking word on it. After you die, sister, you will be rewarded. And may we celebrate together. But this is why he had to make his move for real. This is the, put it all together. These are facts. I let him stay at my house for 2 weeks. He poisoned me. I had no idea. I was just a normal, healthy human being. I got so sick that several different people led me to these natural doctors. I finally found a very good natural doctor who did like microscope work, and he's like, either you're using some horrible IV drugs, and he was like, he's like, will you show me your arms? And I did, and he's like, oh my God, he's like, you're being poisoned, Joe. He goes, I'm telling you. Because he interviewed me for like 45 minutes, and he's like, your blood is poisoned right now. He said it looks like a real poison. And we'll get to it how Kristen told me that, because before he did his ritual on Kristen, he told Kristen he was required by his gods to confess all of his sins that led to this to her, or it wouldn't work. And that's so process, church. Oh, that's so process, church. You fool. And he's so boring. But this is how he was defeated. Yeah, I hope you can come with me and get the magic of this. So I didn't know, man. I had like some kind of dream or something. And I remember getting up and I said, you know what? I said, brother, I really want to help you and Jessica, his daughter, who was like 16, 17 at the time. I said, but man, I'm going to give you some money. I said, but you can't live with me. It's not possible. And man, I could see just the fucking anger in his eye of like, this is how arrogant this stupid fool was. So he like acts all hurt, and he's like, well, give me a day to leave. And I go, well, yeah, it was like the middle of the week. I go, by this weekend. He goes, I don't have anywhere to go. I go, listen, I got 2 children. You can't live with me. But I didn't even know. I was so sick because he was fucking poisoning me. Because I am not kidding you, swear before the gods. His whole thing was, I'll cook and provide, dinner every night, if you let me and Jess live here. And so every night he's cooking these nice dinners, but he's poisoning me. And this really happened. I was listening to, I think I had quit my job at the time, and my wife was working, so I was watching the 2 girls. And in the morning, I've always hated TV and commercials and shit like that. So I was listening as a Rasta. I was I was always listening to Art Bell and the radio. We listened to late night radio and, some like conspiracy shit back then that was mostly Christian. But remember, Rastas are like 99% Christian, so, which is sad. And not real Rastas, but the fake Rastas, that the commercialized, Rastafari thing, Cool Runnings. I was listening to morning Christian radio, and all of a sudden I discovered this thing called the Prophecy Club, who was really like saying some shit like America was going to be judged. They were talking about Dimitri Duduman. They were calling him a prophet. He had all these visions from God that America was going to be nuked because America was Mystery Babylon. And, so I started getting people from the church to check this out, and they would do these speaker tours. So I was the very first person in this church to go to the Prophecy Club that would meet in like a hotel lobby. I mean, a hotel room, banquet room kind of thing. And, it was very interesting. And I didn't know, but the cult leader guy was getting pissed off at me because he wanted to be the prophet. He wanted to be the center of attention. And these Rastas were going and listening. to these other people that were literally prophesying. And even in the Prophecy Club meetings, I get kind of Pentecostal, charismatic, like supernatural Christian shit, which is a Rasta, we kind of laughed at and just walked away from. But I'll speak for myself, I liked the people there because they were open to the supernatural, and most Rastas weren't. Most Rastas were like anything supernatural's voodoo, obia, they're just so close-minded and brainwashed with the Bible, just like Americans. And so I tell everybody at the Rasta Church, including Glenn, I'm like, hey, this guy is coming to speak at the Prophecy Club, calls himself the weather prophet, because supposedly he has prophesied these floods in Kansas City, Missouri, and he's from Missouri, and he supposedly has all this supernatural shit happening around him. He's prophesying that America's going to be destroyed, and he knew Dimitri Duduman. He met Dimitri Duduman. So, check this out. No lie. I hope I can do this justice. This is like 12 dreadlock Rastas sitting in the church, smoking, have their Bibles on their laps. And I'm telling them all this and reading to them from Dan Bowler's stuff about Dimitri Duduman and these like angels giving him visions and showing up and like taking him out of his body, and they're like, damn, who the fuck's this dude? I've never, and they're like, this is happening right now. I'm like, yeah, and this guy's coming to speak, and he's saying, if Jesus, Yahweh, doesn't prove that he's not the, prophesying correctly, that God will, and Dan Bowler wasn't stupid. He would say Yahweh, he would say Yahweh, he would say Jesus, Yeshua. These are the most serious Christians you can ever fucking imagine. These are Christians that when the doctor says you have a brain tumor, they don't even go back to the doctor. They just pray. Live or die. And you got to give it some respect, because they're working with what they know. And because when you're a Christian, you're brainwashed that everything else is evil, including every one of your ancestors that weren't Christian. So irrational, so absurd. But I'm telling you the truth, that Lucifer can use anything to defeat anyone if you're paying attention. Check this out. So, I'm sort of giving this, sales pitch for coming to Dan Bowler with me. I'm like, hey, I'm going to go. You guys should come check this out, And Glenn goes, no shit, the cult leader goes, he goes, check this out. He goes, I'm going to prove that they're amateurs and that Rasta is the real prophet. And I go, what? And he goes, I'm going to go. I'll go. He goes, but check this out. I'm going to prove I'm the real prophet. If this guy, he's like, because we know Rastafari, he's always playing on this, like, we're the chosen. We know Rastafari, we're the Rasta prophet. The real prophecy is that Haile Selassie is the King of Kings and Lord of Lords, conquering Lion of the tribe of Judah from the Bible. And that's how we were brainwashed. So he goes, if this guy really is from Jah, this is quote the cult leader. If this guy is really from Jah, he will do 3 miracles. The weather will be strange. He will greet me personally. and he will mention Haile Selassie Jah Rastafari directly. He said, he looked around the whole room and he goes, if this guy is really from Jah and he does those three things, I'll bow down and I'll say he's the prophet, not me. And I think you know what I'm going to say. But I'll tell you the story very quickly. Okay, that was about 2 weeks before the talk. And it was funny because I was kind of taunting the cult leader guy by saying, hey, 3 days away, we'll see who's the prophet. Because Rastas are always calling people without dreadlocks bald heads. And I was like, yeah, I wonder if the bald head Dan Bowler is a real prophet. It's so crazy that, this is contest is going on. And no lie, swear to it, Mother's holy name, Saint Mother Mary Maria, in her name. And there's many, many, many witnesses to what I'm going to tell you. So on the day of the talk, the day that Dan Buller would be talking, I said, hey, everyone meet at my house, like an hour before, and we'll smoke and, hear what Glenn has to say about, the prophet contest. Because some of the people in the church are like, yeah, it's like the Bible. It's like Elijah and the prophets of Baal or whatever. They're having a showdown. What's crazy, and you think about it, what's insane is Dan Buller knows nothing about this. And this is the weakest, stupidest position of this cult leader. Oh, somebody else has to prove that they're a prophet, because I already am. And we're talking about a short, fat little dork. I'm serious. That his pride and joy was his dreadlocks. He carried them around like that was his whole identity, was his hair. And we're talking about a 50-year-old man hanging out with 26-year-old dudes. Has no friends his own age. He has never works. He's never, Rasta don't work in the system. He don't work in the system because he's the chosen of Jah Rastafari. Until tonight. This was 1998. This was just weeks before this would happen to Kristen. We met at my house. I swear. He walked in the door. I swear to you, it was raining ice when he came to my house. When I opened the door, it was raining ice. And ice was on his fucking head and on his dreadlocks when he walked in the door. And the first thing I said is the weather weird enough for you? Because he said if this guy's a weather prophet, then something's gonna have to happen. Clearly, something's gonna have to happen in the weather. I swear on my Mother Maria's life. The day it was like late November, and the day it was like 60 degrees all day, bright and sunny. Just all of a sudden, when the sun went down, it started raining. It got super cold and started raining ice. On the way to the hotel where Dan Buller was speaking, I had to drive like 30 miles an hour because it was raining ice turning into actual hail. And nobody was on the highway. We were fucking alone. And when we got there, it was like a third of the people that would normally there. So it was like a very light crowd. And check this out. Because of that, they sat us down. You remember his requirements were the weather would have to be strange. If he's the weather prophet, couldn't have got more strange. And he said the second thing is he would have to recognize me and greet me personally. We took our seats. I am, hand on my heart, I swear to you, Dan Bowler looked out from where he was speaking, walked right down the aisle, came right to us in our seats, in our aisle, and shook Glenn's hand and said, "You must be the elder," and shook his hand and recognized him as the elder, shook all of our hands and said, "So glad to have you here. I hope that the Holy Spirit speaks to your heart," or something like that. To each person, he said that. I leaned over to my friend and I said, "That's the second thing. That motherfucker just did the second thing. He greeted Glenn personally and recognized him. He said, 'Elder, you must be the elder of these guys.'" Because it was like him, me, my cousin, and like 2-3 more Rosses. We were like a whole fucking little clan that night because everyone came to see the fucking showdown. And before Dan Bowler started speaking, he already did 2 of the 3 things that were completely supernatural because he had no idea. And I had never been greeted by a Prophecy Club speaker ever before. And it was all because of the weather, because nobody was there, because the weather was so bad, a lot of people didn't come, and it was being delayed. So he walked out into the crowd, I swear, I think he thought we were like some kind of weird Jewish cult, which in a way we were. So the atmosphere was just fucking electric. Me and my cousin had been a dreadlock Rasta with me the whole time, and he was as tuned in on this competition of prophets as me. For real, me and him had been talking constantly. He was my neighbor about Glenn for 2 weeks, and how he made this Elijah type competition. And as Dan Bowler started speaking, I was like, this is so crazy. If this dude somehow mentions Haile Selassie directly, he has fulfilled 3 absolute random craziest. What's the definition of strange weather? I had to drive. You wouldn't have believed the drive there. 2 cars full of Rastas just barely putting down Highway 70 with ice and nobody on the highway because it's raining ice. Straight ice. I remember sliding through the parking lot of the hotel trying to figure out how to park without hitting another car because the shit was so slippery. And we walked into that place so excited because I was like, dude, he can't deny the weather is motherfucking strange. And as we sat there and listened to Dan Bowler talk about how he had a dream, never had done this before his church, said to his church, within this time frame, there is going to be a great storm and flood of the Missouri River that would come up to the door of the church, but not harm the church. He said this in like June and said if that the Holy Spirit in the dream said to him, if it doesn't happen by the end of the summer, then it does not, then it's not me, and just don't even bother. Right? He said, so this was like early June. Okay, check this out. Rastafarians have one holiday. Rastafarians' only true holiday is the birth date of Emperor Haile Selassie Jah Rastafari, who is born on July 23rd. And by 1998, for 6 years, I have been celebrating. And that's kind of how the church started, is I actually had a Rastafarian celebration and honoring of the true King of Kings and Lord of Lords at Forest Park, the site of the World's Fair, in which a lot of Rastas came, and we had food and celebrated the birth of Emperor Haile Selassie, who was born on July 23rd. So Dan Bowler says, I make this do or die prophecy to my church in late spring, early, about summer, around when it turned summer. And he said there was an actual time frame that if it doesn't happen by the start of fall, don't listen to me. I'm a false prophet. God is actually using this to prove me wrong. He said that's what my own thoughts were. He said because I had been a preacher for like 20 years and I had never said anything crazy like this, that there was going to be a flood that would come to the door of the church but not harm the church. He said when I said that before the church, I had fear in my heart. He's telling this whole dramatic story of like, man, I feel like I'm putting my whole career, my whole life, my faith, everything on the line for this flood of the Missouri River. And we're sitting there listening. We're on the edge of our seats, like with him, like, damn, dude, this is crazy supernatural, Because he was talking about other dreams and shit that led up to this, and how he had been like kind of taught step by step to trust this voice and finally make this move to become public. He said the very first person he told was his secretary. He said, I was shaking and said, I got a message from God that a flood was going to come to the door of the church. And he said, she just looked back at me so sweet and said, Pastor, we trust you. And she said, May his will be done. And amazingly, it was so crazy. So he goes, all through the beginning of the summer, he said, I'm getting more messages and told to prophesy more things were going to happen. And that after they seen the flood come to the door, that this was going to happen. And he pulled out a newspaper article. And he said, I just want to read the headline of this newspaper to you. He said, remember what I said? I was by by mid-July, I started wondering, hey, it's the middle of the summer, I've said even more, they're going to laugh at me. They're going to make fun of me. He said, I'm just going to show you this on a slide. It was like a projector. And he said, look up here at the date. He said, I want you to see the date right here. July 23rd. July 23rd. July 23rd. That's Haile Selassie's birthday. That's our only Rastafarian holiday. We were forbidden. We forbid our children from celebrating Christmas. And it was a big deal. Not to be like the fucking commercialized, material-loving people, Rastafarians. Really want to do what's right. And, we thought that's what was right because that was the truth, that Christmas wasn't a Rastafarian, and it's not. But I was Jazz true believer. And when he said on July 23rd, this newspaper article, Missouri River floods at record stage. He said it just started raining and didn't stop raining. He said, I received a call from my secretary, and she said, Pastor, you got to come down here. She said, I don't want to sound happy, but the flood of the river has come to the door of the church. And it was wild. It was just like a energy went forth and just defeated this cult leader guy. I mean, he was never the same because every Rasta there was a real Rasta. And it really didn't matter the people who weren't there. It wasn't as dramatic to people who weren't involved, but to the people that were actually involved, they were like, Jah supernaturally used that Christian dude to defeat that motherfucker. For real. And he just couldn't be the same. He had to admit, this was his explanation. Jah's so powerful that he can use anybody and anything. I mean, dude, there was no logical response. He had been completely defeated. He's the one. He was the one that set these tests. He's the one that thought it up himself to try to make it, and something supernatural fucking defeated him right in front of our faces. We were driving through freezing fucking rain to get to the place. And it was 60 degrees sunny hours before. I am not kidding. Us that were there were just on fucking fire for weeks, telling the story about how this motherfucking dude supernaturally did 3 supernatural things that absolutely were out of his control. And he did them all. And it's so crazy because Haile Selassie is a Leo, the sun, ruled by the sun. And he really was the conquering Lion of the tribe of Judah for us. I mean, he actually did conquer this fake lion, right? And now he was like, on his heels, so to speak. And within like maybe 2 meetings in the church, and this baptism happened. Someone called me and said, like, hey, are you going to come to the baptism? And I really didn't want to. And I ended up going at the very end. And, or something like that. I did get baptized. I did go. But it was feeling the same as that night that Dan Buller defeated this dumb little fool who is, responsible for it. I shouldn't, I don't want to demean anybody's suffering that he caused up. They might say, dumb little fool, well, I mean that evil, that he uses that as his cover for evil also. I mean, so yeah, no, he's not dumb. I shouldn't say that. And we will continue, brothers and sisters, before the throne of Lucifer, and how Jah was showing me that he answered every prayer and heard every prayer, even though the Bible is completely wrong in its context, that there is a man, he is Allah, Lucifer, Jah, and we love him so dearly, and we love Mother so dearly, and thank them so much. And we thank Jamie for the music. We thank Mindy for all the support. We love you so much.